Good people, I hope you're doing well wherever you are. Welcome to another episode of TruZone podcast. This is a platform where we get to discuss some of the things that are happening in our society, and we get also to break down some of the major components that tunahitaji pia kulearn na kugusia kidogo. And today we have a wonderful guest. I don't know how to describe Pastor Richard Chogo. I mean, only one of the few people that when you two women and inspire in one or another. You're a pastor. You are also a social justice advocate, or rather an enthusiast.
Enthusiast. Yes.
Karibu sana Pasi.
Asante.
And today we are here to discuss about the role of Christians as far as societal reformation is concerned.
Okay.
But before tuingililie vitu serious, wacha tuchangamke kidogo. Tuambie story yako kidogo. Umekuwa na your story is very interesting. Umekuwa involved in so many activities za ku make our society better in many platforms, in different bodies and institutions. So first of all, who is Richard Chogo? Mimi nakujua as a pastor.
Wow, that's a hard one because there are many things zinapita kwa kichwa yangu. Nikijaribu kufikiria who is Richard Chogo. Zingine mwanga naenda kudozi na jiweka kando. Nasema jamaa ni nini na yeye. But I think in a nutshell, I'm just somebody whose heart is burning to see several things happening. And first of all, it's part of the Lord's Prayer. It says, may your kingdom come, may your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That is one of the prayers that I've kept on praying a lot. And so whenever I see things are not going in that direction, it just burns my heart. So, and I recognize that is not just supposed to happen in church. It's supposed to happen in every area. Because prayer ukisikia vizuri unasema may your will be done on earth as it is not in church. But on earth as it is in heaven. It's not a perfect world. It may not be perfect anytime soon, but something needs to happen. If Jesus asked us to pray like that, then there's a reason why. And so I just have a heart that wants things to be done right, to go the right way. And so I don't know how to describe that. And that was what's been burning in my heart for a very long time. At first it was in church, but then I began to realize, hey, it's not just church is just part of this conversation. There's a whole world out there. So that's why I found myself beginning to gravitate into initiatives here and there to see transformation happening. In fact, I've even moved several churches because of that discomfort. That discomfort just to see some change happening in society. So I don't know what you would label that.
You don't normally go through your Facebook page.
Yes.
Let me just confess. Your Facebook page yako ni some of the pages and at least in a day lazima nigusie. And it's because you tend to speak on issues that I believe not so many people either are interested or have the knowledge of. And saa zingine kuongea tu kweli, let me be honest, na kurumianga sana because naona ukijaribu ku bring a point that people are not seeing, but there's a way that you describe it and you dissect it in a way that it is understandable to the person who is willing to learn and all that. And kugusia hiyo story yenye umesema ya some of the projects that umekuwa involved in, especially during your time, allow me your time in Mavuno. Kuna projects mingi nimeona ukiwa involved in, kuna spread the love and all that. Ni disconnect gani yenye umeona sana yenye we as Christians have as far as some of the things that are happening in the societies are concerned? Where ni part gani yenye tuelewi at all?
I think part hatuelewi, which is probably the most unfortunate, is that we feel tunaona nika Ukristo it's just about me and me being blessed. And that word blessing has been misunderstood terribly. Because the concept of being blessed in the Bible is not an end, it's a means. So many Christians are stuck at, this is just an end. Nipate gari poa, ni chapa mob, nishiko nyumba poa, God amenibless. So nakuja natoa ushuhuda. But throughout the Bible, whenever God, quote unquote, blessed people, He was blessing them so that they can be a blessing. They can touch society. It's a means. You see, Deuteronomy talks about it gives us power to make wealth so that He may establish His covenant. There's a covenant He made with Abraham, and the covenant is very simple. Genesis 12. I'll bless you so that you can bless others. Right? And we forget that. And so the disconnect comes when we have this very myopic, understanding of what God is doing in our lives, and it's just about us. It's just about me. It's just about, and then it goes. The most it goes is the church again, the four walls of the church or the community of faith, and we are stuck at that. So the Christian is just thinking himself, church, and then heaven. Okay, win a few souls and then heaven. Okay, I think the Luos, they say polo piach, like heaven express. Headed to heaven, teke. But there's a reason why Yesu alipoomba in John 17 akasema, I'm not asking you to take them out of this world. Okay, because he has vested interests in this earth. And his vested interest is a transformation of persons, and then there are opportunities that are there. And so the disconnect is, and again, allow me to say this, the disconnect is discipleship. It's been a poor discipleship model that has been perpetuated in most churches. And this discipleship model is not empowering, okay? It just excites people. It just makes people, especially within the Pentecostal space, and I'm that's my heritage. Although my heritage is quite mixed up. At some point it's Quaker, and then at some point it was Baptist. It was now Pentecostal. But I am really have a heart for the Pentecostal. So there's a disconnect in terms of the discipleship process. It ends in church. It ends in church. Look at most disciples. Ask many churches their discipleship process. It ends in serving in church. It should not end in serving in church. That's why, you mentioned Mabuno. I love their process. It does not end in church. It ends in becoming a fearless influencer of society, touching society there. And that intrigued me. It's a difficult one to hack. It's a hard one. I don't think we have been able to successfully hack it in most of our churches in Kenya, even in the world. There are a few churches that have been able to hack that, but moving towards that would be better. So the disconnect is a discipleship process that ends in church, and then just thinking about yourself, a misunderstanding of the concept of being blessed, and misunderstanding of our purpose here on earth. There's a big disconnect there.
And I think upon the palishida imekame, we are sometimes we are so much focused on fighting for positions within the church because we have never learned the aspect of ministry out there. Okay. So I wanted to ask you a question. In the 1960s, during the civil rights movement and also the pre-colonial times, the church was very active when it came to fighting for some of these liberation movements and all that. And also the 1980s here in Kenya, story multipartyism and all that. Tulikuwa very active.
Yes.
Tulikuwa very active. But sasa nikiangalia church ya hii decade kuongea tu kweli. And I think, to be honest, I think we are not that engaged when it comes to some of the things that are happening, especially in our political sphere and also the society. And I believe the church should have a voice when it comes to these two things and all that. So what happened? First of all, what happened? Where did we go wrong?
Wazungu wanasema, when did the rain start to beat us?
Exactly. Because there are so many preachers who were persecuted in the 80s. Kuna wenye hata walidai.
The likes of Akina Joya, some Muge, others that, Akina Father, what was the name of this?
Kaisa.
Kaisa.
Yeah.
those men, even Dennis White.
Yeah.
Dennis White was very vocal. At that time, he challenged the president in the service just to clarify a few issues. We've even this Anglican guy who I think is retired. Manasseh, not Manasseh. There's a guy who was one of the bishops of Anglican. He was very like in Andrew Kulu and the rest. The rain began to beat us when we began to fully embrace prosperity gospel, the Pentecostals. And the Pentecostals, my challenge is that for a long time they were not part of that conversation. Okay? They had bought into this gospel that made them to be too heavenly minded, that they were not being of great earthly use. And I think it goes back to the doctrine of just feeling that if I can just be filled with the Holy Spirit, then I'll be okay and get blessed. But then the other evangelicals who are actively involved. Then it becomes worse with the Pentecostals when some Pentecostals embrace a prosperity gospel that just focuses on God and me and does not tell you, look here, you need to go out there and do something and transform society. So then there's a separation of spiritual and secular, which I have a different view. I know people can challenge it. I feel that one of the biggest mistakes the church can make is to go full length in saying, okay, this is secular, this is spiritual. And I'll explain. The earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof, the Bible says. And so everything I do should be, the basis should spring from a spiritual angle. So when I leave the church and I go to work and I start work, my work should be spiritual. I should do it from influenced and driven from a spiritual space. It's a dichotomy that many believers now create. When they're in church, they are spiritual. When they go to work, you see. And so we need to find a way of saying, look here, spirituality. There's a time I had an argument with a friend of mine because I was telling him, even when I'm walking on the streets, it's still spiritual if I do it the way God wants it to be done. Spiritual is not mysticism. Spiritual is doing things the way God wants them to be done. The highest form of spirituality is just obeying God. Period. If I obey God at my place of work, I'm spiritual. Spirituality is not about speaking in a lot of tongues. That's part of it. But it goes beyond that. So the disconnect comes with misunderstanding of secular, spiritual, and then Sunday becomes the day, and then the rest of the days we're not talking about them. So the pastor is not equipping people for the rest of the day. The pastor is just encouraging them on Sunday and pumping them up. And so we find we get to a place where, and then another problem happened. The president of one of the famous presidents of this country discovers that the church is an asset and begins to lure church leaders. And church leaders become bedfellows with the government into the 90s. And by the time we get to the 2000s, the church leaders are compromised. Only a few of them can claim they have never gotten something from status. It is the same thing being repeated right now. Okay? I mean, church leaders have been pocketed, are being pocketed. I mean, if you've been receiving money from a character, if he becomes the president, will you challenge that?
You cannot criticize them.
Okay? I don't know if I'm approached by some of these characters and I'm given a serious briefcase. If I refuse, I don't know. May God try me. But then when this prosperity mentality and money comes into the church, and Arambe is fundraising for building churches, doing and the politicians have come in, it becomes difficult for the church to challenge. And so we begin to witness the end because Timothy and Joel, Andrew Okulu, Kipsang Muge. There's no politician who could point a finger and say, I gave you money.
Yeah. And that's why they became more dangerous to,
Exactly.
They became a threat.
And it's because they learn to live life that are contented.
Yeah.
But man, look here, man. If I come to preach in your church, let's say you're a pastor, if I come to preach in your church and I'm driving a bit, people will chances are they will not even want to listen to me. Okay?
Yeah.
Because if I come with a Range Rover and I say I'm blessed, people will even begin to fall down before I pray. Okay? That is a problem.
Yeah.
Because that opens the door for me to want to receive money.
Yeah.
More money.
Yeah.
And dilute my message.
Yeah.
So I can't challenge them. So now the politicians have discovered that and they're taking advantage of that. So it's a big problem.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one.
Yeah.
Because I was challenged by another reporter and asked, that time I was still in Nairobi Chapel, can you guys in Lagos, can you take on the government? Can you take on the current, the onset of this conversation of Udamakism? Can you take on this? Can you challenge this? But then he told me, you may want to challenge, but I told him I may want to challenge, but I'm not sure how my bosses will.
That's another thing.
Handle this.
Because
I don't know. You may want to challenge, and then you find your spiritual leaders have, arrangements with some of these people. I'm not saying they have. They have arrangements. So you don't know. It's a difficult space.
Exactly. We have church bodies that speak, or rather they claim, or rather they say that they speak for the church. They represent the church. And there are so many things that have happened or are happening, but they've been silent. And I don't know if that's a problem or that's how the way maybe things are supposed to go, because I think we have so many church bodies. I think every denomination is represented by a body, in one or another. But I think when it comes to the issues that are happening, especially the ones that hit the moral sphere, we only see the Catholic. I think the Catholic has been visible when it comes to agitating for these rights and all that.
Social justice.
What is happening? What is happening?
I've not done enough research to understand how the Catholic have been able to. My suspicion is this. The Catholic clergy, they invest in equipping them and expanding their thinking. You will find a Catholic priest has got 2-3 degrees. Okay? They are, and not just theological, their first degree is theological, but then they are given a chance to study many other things.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And that expands their thinking. There's a certain discipline and rigor that is embraced by the training process of the Catholic clergy that you don't find in any other church. Okay? They invest in leadership development. Now, let me talk about my people. We, the charismatics, the Pentecostals, you become a leader by chance. Yes, if you scream louder than everybody else, you are appointed the youth chairman. But we don't. And a good number of evangelical churches, they're not working out to invest in leadership development. And then that leadership development is not aligned to discipleship.
Yes.
The Catholic Church, their leadership development is aligned to their discipleship process. And they train the average Catholic clergy is a well-read person. The average, even Anglican, the average Anglican clergy is a bit read, not as much as the Catholic guy. That's why these guys can talk. That's why, there's a vaccine. They have done their research. You see that, you think that's just a father? No, that person has a degree in chemistry and whatever.
Yeah.
They understand these things.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's been years of investment.
Yes.
And to be fair to the other churches, Catholic has had years of investment and at some point, there's a branch of the Catholic Church that's called the Jesuits that just decided, no, we would want to come up with ways and means we can infiltrate society, okay, and become visible in society. And they began to come up with means and ways of doing that. I mean, the guys who came up with Strathmore and different other, there's another body, another fraternity within the Catholic Church that is running the Strathmore and all that. Even our governor is part of that. Governor for Central Bank is part of that fraternity of brothers. Disciplined. And that's why they're able to be woke, okay, quote unquote, and to take on challenges in society. The rest of the churches, they're not investing. We're just producing people to preach, people that will cast out devils. Good enough, but we need to go beyond that. We need to produce people that will be able to challenge society. Have a discourse, engage society. Because where the society is going, it's going in a direction where knowledge has increased. And people have facts on their fingers. Some of those facts are distorted, but they have them in their fingers. So if I'm just equipped to preach the Bible, I will not be as helpful. When I wanted to do my master's, I got distracted and discovered that there's something in life coaching, leadership coaching, and growth coaching. And I'm even about to do one more aspect of coaching to train for one more aspect. And I said, let me do that. Because I want to do a master's in theology. But let me go and do this. And it opened my eyes to understand several things. I didn't know there are things like neuro-linguistic programming, other things. I began to understand another side of hypnosis that people don't know, because you always know the bad side of hypnosis, okay? Then began to wrestle with the whole thing of how do I align this with Christian thinking? I'm not advocating for hypnosis, but how do I align this with Christian thinking? Because it's being used by the world. How do we counter it? Okay? Because our young people are hypnotized. How do we counter that? Somebody has got to read beyond the theology and all that. That's why the Catholic Church has been more effective. That's my thinking. It could be different, but that's my thinking. And that's why other churches have been shying away from challenging. And social justice is part of the gospel of Jesus. Read the Gospels carefully. Social justice is part of his gospel. Read the prophets. The prophets used to foretell and foretell. We only get excited by the foretelling or the prophesied. But then the 70% of what the Isaiahs, the Ezekiels, and the rest was forth-telling. They were talking about current events. They were saying, King, you're mistreating people. King, you're doing this. Don't do that. Don't do that. They were speaking to governments. And that's what we need to go back to as a church. And we have missed that.
Jesus was a very conversational person. He was somebody who would go out in the streets and talk to people and all that. And pasi mimi niko na shida moja. There's an issue personally that nimeona crop up after the pandemic thing and the church is closing and all that. It is like the four walls of the church it's like it's an oxygen tank where tukitolewa tu kidogo tuna suffocate. Because I was having a debate with somebody and I was telling them, I think now is the right time for us to be, to be like Jesus, to go out there, go know how your neighbor is doing. Find out your neighbor is doing. Wamekula, wamefanya nini? Ongea nao and all that. Sunday ingine, tafuta place ingine uende and all that. But it's like people are so into church, so into the four walls of the church and all that, to a point whereby when wakiwa nje ya church, they can't function. Ukristo imeisha sasa. Ukristo ni ya the work is just to wait for the pastors to work hard to, to preach for us on Sunday online and then until next Sunday and all that. Hiyo habit tunaweza iachaje basi?
Discipleship.
Yeah.
Discipleship process yetu si poa. Discipleship process yetu inatutupisha mbao.
I think we have invested a lot in discipleship, but what is not happening?
How do I explain this?
I think that's a word that I normally hear every Sunday. Discipleship.
Yeah. But it's been, my fear is that it's being used so much in the wrong context that it will lose its meaning. So far, by now, it's already lost. What the meaning should have. Look at the early disciples. Just study the book of Acts and then look at the post-Acts era. Okay? There was a plague at some point. I can't remember the specific period. There was a plague in Rome, in the Roman Empire. Which killed millions of people. Even the medical society of then, the medics of then were afraid to nurse the sick. Guess who was nursing the sick? The Christians. And many of them died because of going out to nurse. And it cost those who recovered, began to embrace Christianity.
Yeah.
Okay, it's part of the story. I can't remember the details, but that, and also the fact that people could see them dying in the stadiums and not, renouncing their faith, made many people begin to come into Christianity. In a time when Christianity was oppressed, the system was against. There was systemic,
systemic injustice
against the Christians.
Yeah.
But they were able to thrive.
Yeah.
That's why, I have my own challenges with just saying, we can't thrive because we have systemic injustice.
Yeah.
That's a very defeatist mentality.
Yeah.
These guys thrived until Constantinople was like, apana, and was advised by his Senate, maybe, hey, these guys, we better join them. If you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah.
But there's a story where they nursed. And so maybe our discipleship process has not brought us to the place where we are seeing that. We are seeing that. Our discipleship process has brought us to the place where we think, unless pastor, apostle, reverend, mighty man of God, Richard Chogo prays for me, then nothing can happen.
Yeah.
So I must come for him to pray for me.
Yeah.
There's a time we were dedicating children in a church I was pastoring. Yeah. And then somebody insisted that I must be the one to lay hands on their child because I was a pastor of the church. I said, I don't have to. My practice is this. The elders will be there. I will pray generally for the children, and the elders will anoint the children with oil. I don't have to be. So she insisted, the mother of the child. So I said, let me do a follow-up, because he was talking to my wife. I said, let me talk to her. I said, well, why would you insist? Because we come from another church. My mother and father will be there. They're saying, if they don't want the elders to lay hands, because they don't know what spirit the elders are carrying. Okay? They want the senior pastor because he's the one who God has anointed for that space. What? I said, come on! What is that? Anyway, but that tells you where our discipleship is taking us. It's taking us to the place where we don't see ourselves as. Let me explain a proper discipleship process.
Go ahead.
It picks people from society. Okay. So let's go to the society and pick people. The prostitutes, the tax collectors. Let's go and pick them. At that place we call them complacent. They are complacent. They don't want anything to do with church. Let's think, how do we get them in their complacency? Then we bring them to, we connect them, maybe through outreach events, whatever. We connect them into the church, where now they become consumers. They begin to receive God's word, and many people get stuck there.
And they start criticizing the way the services are. Like,
So when you start hearing, the song, the pastor is not, I didn't feel the anointing today. You know, this person is a consumer.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they are elders.
Yeah.
That's a consumer.
Yeah.
They get stuck there.
Yeah.
But then you need to move them beyond consuming to become connected. Most churches would use small groups of the place to become connected. Okay? True. And then once you become connected, through connection, then you become committed. Okay? You begin to serve. You begin to serve, and many times you begin to serve in church.
Yeah.
But it does not stop there. You need to go to another step where you begin to be compelled. Compelled not just to serve in church, but to go beyond the church and go and look for those guys you left in society.
Yes.
Okay? Those complacent people. You go and now push them back. So it becomes a cycle. That's a healthy, that's the process Jesus proposed when he said, "Come follow me."
Yes.
And I will make you fishers of men.
Yeah.
You see, if we don't complete that cycle, because many people are stuck at committed, are stuck at consumer, are stuck at connected, but few people are compelled.
Very true.
Few people are compelled. As long as we have very few who are compelled like you. I mean, I see you doing stuff out there. You're going to all sorts of places. See, that's what an average disciple should be doing. But here we are. We celebrate Alex Kimina. We are like, this is the leader of the year. Yet what you're doing, my friend, is what an average disciple should do if our discipleship process is working. What MP's wife? What is Cynthia. What Cynthia is doing in primary schools, and I've been there several times, part of the whole process. Yeah. What she's doing is what an average.
She's doing a good job.
Yeah. We've celebrated several other people in this church, in Deliverance Church Umoja, who are doing that. But they're the exception. They're not the rule. Because our discipleship process is not delivering that. It should deliver that.
Okay.
That's the challenge. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Somebody could correct me.
Actually, for me, I agree with you 100%.
Sorry for saying that what you're doing is not average.
No problem.
I'm just saying an average believer should be doing what? You imagine if truly the Spirit of God dwells in us. The Spirit of God, we are abusing the Spirit of God because he has so much packaged in him that we're not using. I mean, we're not using. If all the Holy Spirit is doing in my life is just helping me to speak in tongues and to serve in the choir and to serve as an usher. No. Something should be changing at my work. Something. In fact, what God wants to do through our lives Monday to Friday is more critical than what he wants to do through our lives on Sunday. I'm telling you. In the marketplace, in the office, in society out there, what he wants to do through us is more critical. Okay. And that's why I'm saying that should be. We should take you as and say we should take you and take your samples to a lab and. We come up with something, then we inject every Christian. You and Cynthia, we just take for the ladies, you take Cynthia's. For you, for the men, we take your DNA.
Many people tell me that that's not my calling, but that's your calling, but we can support you. Is that true? Because I think that's an excuse also.
Maybe they are right, they are wrong also. And they'll tell you why they are right is because they are confusing it with assignment. These are some wonderful young men. I was having a conversation with him 3 days ago, who's doing some amazing work in the area of Makadara with young children. Because he was waking up in the morning, realized there are too many small children. Then, went to the Sunday school pastor, children's pastor says, give me some materials that you use on Sunday because these kids may not come to church. I can use the materials. So began, taking the materials and doing them with the photocopying, getting a few people to help him. Then he discovered this is my assignment. So right now, he goes to a certain church I was part of. Right now, the kids he gathers on Saturday are almost more than the kids that gather on Sunday. Because some of them may not come to church. Those kids will grow up and impact society. Now, his assignment is different from you, but the calling is the same. Impact society. And that's why conversation and fellowship with the Holy Spirit is very critical for you to hear him whisper your assignment. Okay? But calling, you can't run away from it. So they are wrong in the sense that all of us are called to impact society. Okay? But then they are right in the sense that that may not be their assignment. But then they are also right in the sense that they can support. See, that's what I normally say.
Yes.
If you are not sure about your assignment, just locate anyone who is doing something that is impacting society. Be part of it. Because in the process of being part of it, you will discover your assignment. Okay? So and support is not just, okay, the least you can do is maybe monetary support. But you should show up once in a while and do something. And so every Christian should be doing something. Either supporting or being part of it. Or then they have discovered the assignment and they're doing it. But I'm telling you, there are even very few that support. Okay? Let's not even talk about those who are doing something. Let's not even talk about those who support. Very few. I mean, very few. Gather young people, begin to talk to them. Gather women, begin to talk to them. Just do something. Just do it. But I hope it's the right thing.
Sawa. Masi, last question. Politics. Tuingie politics kidogo.
Tumemaliza.
Tumemalizia.
Me, I'm warming up, man.
You're warming up.
But it's okay. I don't feel like I'm saying something substantial.
You've said a lot of... but then again, acha tuonge, maybe pointing ingine to extend.
Sawa.
George Floyd, there's an issue that happened in America. It was very unfortunate. I saw the clip and I was, I don't know how to describe what I saw. And there are some things that I saw that I don't think I'll ever see them again. During this pandemic season, there are so many people who have died. There are so many people who have been brutally assaulted. And there are so many people right now actually at for procedure, what they were walifanyiwa na polisi and all that. And in America, there are some ongoing protests up to today. It's a bit of a mixture. I don't know whether it's George Floyd anymore. There are so many things that are happening.
It's taking an interesting turn.
Exactly. There are some reforms that need to happen. How can you be involved apart from the social media and all that, as far as some of these issues raising them are concerned? Without unajua social media kuna venye imetuficha. We can be able to say anything that you want to say, but we are not really there. How can we be there?
From a safe space, safe distance.
Exactly.
There are a few things that can be done, because my assumption is that there are elements within the police that have not understood their task, their role. We even pushed as a society for it to be changed from a police force to a police service. But then it's almost a question of changing the forest, but not the monkeys. So we there's a time we did something with the police. Okay? We've been involved in working with the police over time in the TruZone system. And we did a discipleship course with the police officers. I remember we did in Buruburu, we did in several other places. Discipleship experience. Not all of them came, but we just said, let's do with a few of them. I remember there's a class I was doing, and even the OCS was in that class. He has a lot of things. So every now and then he's answering phone calls. I have to pause and wait for him. Then we continue having the conversation. There are few things, and these guys are human beings, and they can understand. You can have a conversation with them, and they can change for the better. And So there's a way, if it's possible, there's a way to infiltrate and even as a church here, we've had some engagement with the police.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I remember during Christmas we were going around, just sharing the joy of Christmas with the police, the different police forces that are here. When we were celebrating our anniversary last year, we did that. But it shouldn't just be one-off. We should have more engagement with them, and I think that engagement can help them to begin to, do things differently. Because even within that force, there are people who want to do the right thing, but they're not celebrated. So they become frustrated and they begin to flow with what everybody else is doing. And so some engagement can happen at that level. Another level engagement can happen is that this is a systemic problem. We are seeing the police, but it's a systemic problem.
Yeah.
And it needs to be changed, at not just from bottom up, but top down. Needs to be changed. And so that's why the Christian cannot shy away from engaging in the politics of the land to push for certain changes, to push for certain, things to be done differently. You see, like here in Embakasi West, the fact that we have an MP whom we can engage with, in case of anything, we can work with that MP to the police and say, this is not making sense.
Yeah.
I mean, there are vijanas who've been arrested. And my MCA, Batia, Goodman, there are times when, young men have been arrested. There's a time we used to have a church that would meet at Minnesota area. And sometimes these young men would, not knowing that they shouldn't cut through the police lines, they would cut through the police lines and be arrested. And they are choir members. And so you're able to then have a conversation with the police and say, okay, this was wrong, but they'll not do it again. And just have that and engage. But there are some young people who have been also, victimized.
Yes.
And because we have access, because we have a political goodwill in terms of that level of politicians, we can be able to walk and have a conversation with these policemen and say, look here, maybe you did not get the facts right, and this, you mishandled this. Maybe it can be handled in a different way. And so there has to be political engagement. I'm just talking I've talked at a certain, but it needs to go beyond.
Yes.
So when we have certain leaders in place, then those leaders, we can work with them, and they can be able to begin to initiate reforms. But then even huku chini, we can begin to do something. And I think we are not yet at the place, we might be at the place where we may need to have some form of protest and all that. But with all that, there has to be some engagement. I wouldn't want us to go to the extreme of saying, we want to disband the police. If you disband the police in Kayole, what do you do, man? How will we live? But we can engage with them and see how they can begin to do things differently. Point out, and it's good. I mean, let's not even write off the social media, guys. Let's make noise, because social media has made noise and action has been taken. Okay? And that is valid also. But apart from just making noise, we can do these other things. We can engage with the police. We can push pressure. We can... Now, this coming election, I wish we would wake up and do something different. Because if we just elect a certain crop of leaders, it will be, as usual. Life will just continue as usual. But if we make a strong statement that we want a change, the population wants a change, and we elect certain different crops of leaders and begin to push them, then they can push legislation, they can push certain things that can change even the way the police operates, and that can bring a difference. I mean, the politics in Norway, it's not like everybody's born again in Norway and Sweden and all that. It's just that the governance, the politics and governance of that land is different. Okay, that's why you find some police posts, they've never had to arrest somebody for a whole month. Police there is just to help people. Some show has a flat tire. The police comes and helps. That's what the police will tell you they have been doing the whole week in some parts of Sweden. And it's because their political system has changed. We need to push our political system to change. If we don't have a political system that is changed, if we don't have good governance, we will never get there. We will never get there. We'll pray until we turn blue.
Yeah.
We will protest until, I don't know what happens, but we'll never get there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I would talk to the population, something needs to change about how we elect our leaders.
Yeah.
And we can no longer elect our leaders along tribal lines, along party lines. It has to be along, is this a competent person? Is this a leader who has proven that he can? If somebody has scandals all over them, let's be, even if they are your tribesmen, let's say, no, we can't elect this person. I mean, all my life, I don't think I've ever elected somebody of my tribe. I've never gone to the ballot and picked somebody of my tribe. Okay, all my life of voting. And I'm not planning to just vote along tribes. I'm not planning anytime soon. Okay, and we need to approach things differently, and the church can play a role in doing that. Can play a role. If I've made any sense there.
You've made a lot of sense, and there's something that you've mentioned. There's this word that is very misused, the word revolution. Everywhere you go, you hear revolution. We need a revolution. We need a revolution. I was debating with somebody and I was telling them that not all revolutions per se in history have been successful. Others have done more damage than where the country was in the first place. And so what kind of revolution do we need as Christians to... what needs to happen? Is it ballot revolution? Is it... the Protestant revolution already happened. What kind of revolution do we need as far as Christians are concerned?
It's a hard question. But I was having a conversation this morning with somebody on social media, and they feel that, and it was just this conversation about oppression, and they feel that a certain group of people have been so oppressed that things cannot change unless there's major systemic changes, and that's true. But I was saying, we can wait for systemic changes and die waiting, but something can be done. Okay, something can be done, and it can be a revolution of sorts. And I don't think it's just there's one silver bullet when it comes to revolutions. It has to be a mix of several things converging at some point, and then now the river of revolution becomes unstoppable. Arab Spring was an interesting revolution, but it has had mixed fruit. I mean, if what happened in Libya is Arab Spring, then I don't want Arab Spring.
Exactly.
Okay? But at some point in Ukraine, there was Orange Revolution that produced some better fruits, a bit, reasonable fruits. So it's a mixed bag. But the revolution I would advocate for is more aligned to what Jesus did. Jesus started a very quiet revolution. At some point here, the Romans were suspicious, but then they're not sure. So it started with 12 men. Mark chapter 3, verse 14. And then began to build it slowly. By the time he was dying on the cross, it had only grown to a few hundreds. Just a few hundreds. But those few hundreds, he had done something with them that, now we are billions. And what he did with them is what I'm really interested in. He began to teach them, he began to model and teach them an alternative way of living that was counterculture. And he did not just teach them, he modeled it invested. There's some things they caught, there's some things that were taught, until by the time he's leaving, when people look at them, they say, no, these people are turning the world upside down. And then they would say, these people look like they have been with that guy called Jesus. And we need more people like that. So I was telling this person, look here, you are privileged enough, and you are in this class of people. You can begin to pick just a few and begin to do something with them. Begin to mentor them. Let's not be in a hurry. Begin to infiltrate slowly. And then, if you do compound, calculations, if I pick 12 people right now, this year, 2020, and I impact them for all 1.5 years, I'm not in a hurry. After 1.5 years, I challenge each one of them to pick just 5 people each. to impact for the next 1.5 years. If I don't do anything, if I don't do anything after that, I don't pick any other person, and they continue impacting 5, and then they challenge the 5 to impact another 5, and there's a failure rate of 50%. 10, 15 years, we'll be talking about millions. Not just tens of millions, almost hundreds of millions of people impacted. Do your math.
Yeah.
And it's a revolution in itself,
Yeah.
which can change a whole thing in a generation.
Yeah.
In a generation.
Yeah.
So I've been trying my best. Last year, spent a bit of time with a few young people and challenged them to go and do something about what we had spent time doing. My failure rate, I don't know, because I've not followed up on all of them, but it's more than 50%, quote unquote. But one of them inspired me. He came and whispered to me and said, the things that you're teaching us and you're doing, I've been doing it with about 150 young people. I was like, whoa, look at that.
Yeah.
I was like, no, sir, please make sure you challenge them to do it with others.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
That is the kind of revolution I would really push for. But I don't discount this other revolution. As long as it's not violent, there are points when it can involve a bit of aggression, and I'm not sure I want to qualify that. I would rather shy away from that, but I recognize that sometimes it has involved a bit of aggression. But that has to be the last resort completely. There are many other means we can use to bring up a revolution that can change. Here in this country, the church can lead a revolution. And it's a revolution that will not fire any bullet. We may get some tear gases here and there.
Yeah.
But if the church begins to mobilize, if the church leaders in this country that have more clout than I have, yet they don't see it, and they can begin to make a revolution. There are young leaders in their 40s and 50s who, if they just decide, let's put our minds together. I was talking to one of the serious pastors in this city. He's in his early 50s, but he's doing a phenomenal job. I was telling him, if you and another one who's also in his early 50s put your heads together, you'll begin to transform Nairobi. You'll easily transform Nairobi. Because when they do their online thing on Sunday, if you put the average number of people that listen to these people is in the tens of thousands. And they can make a difference. And so that can be a revolution in some sorts, and begin to have a conversation about how do we influence our political system, how do we influence how we vote as Christians, how do we vote as a bloc, maybe, I don't know. Let's have this conversation. So revolutions.
Yeah.
I would only advocate more concretely for the one that Jesus led.
Exactly. Kuna story ya Malawi. They have a new president. Yeah, who I think has a background in pastoral service.
Yeah, he's been a bishop.
Yeah. Now, somebody told me that alikuwa niambie kishafika sa election, yeye umbangi for Godeke, a Christian leader. Anaambianga Godeke a man after his own heart. Is that true? Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. A man after his own heart, and also a competent leader. Okay. Because leadership is not just about faith is critical, and I would wish every leader in this world was born again. But when I remember the example of what happened in Zambia, I am like just being born again and having been a pastor, having been a spiritual leader, sufficient, because they had a leader who had also been a clergy, a powerful man of God, very eloquent. We all got excited to see him leading people in prayer. There's a clip that has been going around, back then, of him leading prayers for the Zambian nation, but it did not translate into a transformation.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there could be other factors that could have made it difficult for him to lead transformation. But I watched a little documentary on the copper mines of Zambia and how they have been exploited. And it was sad to see him being referenced in a way that was not very helpful. It made me think and say, if a person who's born again, who's full of the Spirit, quote unquote, can end up there, then the solution is not just a person. It has to be what you said, a man after God's own heart, the kind of leader that David was. And there are several things about David. He was conciliatory, he was competent, he was good chemistry, he was, all that stuff. If we can have that kind of a leader. So yes, I'm excited that Malawi has got this, because I've been to Malawi and the situation there is dire. I mean, we talk about a country struggling. I mean, Kenya, we don't know yet what struggle looks like. Malawians have had a difficult time. And I hope that, I don't know much about him. I hope it will be a different story than the one that was in Kenya. And I hope that he has the necessary competencies and he will put the interest of the country first. I mean, it's sad that when I look back and I think of African leaders, the African leaders that have impressed my heart are not necessarily born again. Okay? I don't know if Thomas Sankara was born again. The guy, I have watched the documentary about him and how he was taken out and all that. It's hard. I have mixed feelings about the guy in Rwanda, but he's trying, but also he's also leading in an interesting way. Way. But the country of Botswana has had some interesting leaders, and they have led that country very well. It's probably the healthiest country economically in Africa. But we don't hear much about them. Even right now as I sit here, I don't even know the name of the president of I know there was a Kama, there was some Kamas. Yeah, Kama.
The first and the second,
Ian Kama and somebody Kama. And there's one who was a bachelor up to the time.
I think it's Kama. It's still Kama.
But look, man, sound policies. I mean, I went there, visited there, and having conversations with the young people there, they can, at that point, that was 2016, I visited Botswana. At that point, a university graduate could apply for a grant to start a project. I mean, if you graduate, you could apply for a grant, not a loan, a grant to start a project, and you could be given up to $1 million shillings to just come up with your own startup. Can you imagine if that happens in Kenya? What watapiga sherehe hapa hiyo 1 million itaisha kwa sherehe
kama help imelemea watu.
Sasa ndio huko help. Sasa grant. And the locals can go through primary school and the primary school in their Lavington is the same quality as their primary school in Turkana. Okay, out in the wilderness. And it's just management of resources. If we can get somebody who's managing resources very well, as long as it's not stopping us to worship, I have no qualms about whether he's in church or out of church, but as long as he's leading this country, we will sort out the issue of him knowing Jesus at some point. Some of the leaders who really helped God's people in the Bible were not, godly people. I mean, Nehemiah was being helped by a king who was very far from God. But he really helped Nehemiah in the rebuilding of the wall. He even gave resources. Okay? I mean, Daniel worked with some of the most wicked leaders. Okay? In fact, it is somebody complains about the Babylonians. Is it Haggai or somebody else who's saying, how can you use these guys? Look at Nebuchadnezzar and the rest. They're not like very nice, godly leaders. They're praying, doing morning devotion every morning. I mean, Nebuchadnezzar is not when he was turned into an animal that he says, hey, there's a God. But that guy was, in their conquest, the Persian leaders were not very nice guys. But, God used them in some way, especially the ones who helped those who were in captivity to go back. God used them. And so God can use different leaders.
Yeah.
And so my concern is that I'm excited about the Malawian story, but cautiously excited.
Yeah.
And the caution is, I hope this will not be another attempt. Like, look, it will be like Zambia, then Malawi, then you say that this is born again. I don't know if you've heard that story of people sometimes don't want to employ,
Yeah, I've heard.
brethren in church, don't want to employ fellow brethren.
Yeah.
Because they will just begin to speak in tongues, they will pray and do, morning glory, lunch hour meeting, do the work.
Yeah.
They would rather get some guy from Kipera to come and do the work and eat lunch and go.
Actually, there was a debate that a friend of mine called Peter Tosh. He called all the MCA aspirants of Embakasi West and akawaleta pale vo chini and we had a conversation with them. And I mean, when you hear the so-called aspirants who claim to be Christians and they want to, impact change in the constituency, they are out of touch when it comes to the issues that are affecting our areas. Na unapata sasa ule mtu mwenye anakaa ni kama yeye ndio mbaya wa matei na nini, huyo ndio anaelewa shida. But then on the other side, the people that I think we are supposed to maybe be supporting them, they are really out of touch with even what's going on in the society and all that. So we are like, afadhali huyu mwenye analewa lakini at least atasaidia pale pengine. And it's a bad position to be in.
It's a hard one.
Yeah.
But again, a thought has crossed my mind.
Yeah.
There's a problem in the way we are modeling the life of Jesus.
Yeah.
And maybe we need to, I don't have a solution,
like
a hard and straight solution.
Yeah.
Look at Jesus. He was so in touch with, in fact, even his language was not the language of the, there's Christianese nowadays.
Yes.
There's Christianese. And sometimes we talk it and we don't even know it's Christianese. I'm blessed, I'm sanctified, I'm what, the language in the church.
Yeah.
But then Jesus was not talking Christianese of those days. Jesus was talking Shem, was talking the language of the Nta. It was called the market language, Aramaic.
Yeah.
It was a market language.
Yeah.
It was not written somewhere, it was not the official language, no, it was just Nta. That's what Jesus talked in the market. And so he was in the market, he was in a bash with Matthew and other tax collectors, doing a bash there, but he was connecting with them, he was connecting with the prostitutes. It's a very difficult conversation, okay? We have lost a certain aspect of Jesus' ministry. That's why the people we produce are not in touch with the reality on the ground. And are not in touch with. There's a time we had a pastors' conference. This was very mischievous, and so this is controversial. I may get into trouble saying this. We had a pastors' conference, and the opening ceremony, there was some of our music leaders were doing some music, and so they just took a song that was happening, that was hitting out there. And at that time, the song was "Who's Gonna Run This Town Tonight?" Remember
Jay-Z and Rihanna.
Yeah. They took that song and just gave it Christian, lyrics, and sang that song. Do you know? 70% of those pastors did not know what was happening. They didn't even know. They were like, "Wow, what song is that?" They were like, "Man, if you just knew." Because they're not aware of what's happening. They're not aware of the trends. And I'm not asking that because it's a dangerous space. Yeah. And I would understand why we would shy away. It's a dangerous space because it's slippery ground. You really need to have the leading of the Spirit to understand, to be in touch with the realities. And so even the leaders we're raising can be in touch with the realities. If I can't infuse some of these things into my sermons, I like the bishop, our bishop here. You hear him saying something, you're like, "Hey, Ujama, his walk. This guy knows what's going on the ground." But many times, we are raising people, we the pastors, the pulpit, we are preaching a gospel that is not in touch with what's happening on the ground. And I'm not saying that we now we need to change our gospel, but we need to contextualize our gospel, the gospel we are preaching. The message does not change, the context changes. And so we use that. And so Must we even be putting on suits as we preach? Okay? We don't have to. It's some Zungu who came and told us that. That is official. And so we are stuck at that. All right? We can change that. Right? And so we are producing believers and people who are going out there, like those MCAs you're saying, who are not in touch. Not in touch with reality. That becomes a big problem.
It becomes another issue. Yeah. Finally, you as a pastor, you are the generation that is coming is another generation that has never been seen in history.
Is it the alpha or which one?
Nasikia naitwa sijui ni Y ama ni Z ama ni X.
Wameenda mpaka sisi wamepita Y, wamepita Z.
Wamepita Z.
Wamerudi A.
There's a prayer that you had posted on your Facebook page. Ni prayer ya mtaa. I don't know if you can remember.
I was that guy.
I think ilikuwa ni show ya TV or something.
That show, yeah.
But then again, niliona hiyo prayer nikacheka tu. But then again, in as much as ni art, you know, life it imitates art.
Yes.
And anything that happens in art somehow is influenced by what is happening in life. Hiyo ndo generation tutahubiria saa hii. Na hiyo ndo generation tunafikia. And a concern that I have is there's a big generational gap between the baby boomers and Generation Y and the Z and all that. And baby boomers, in my opinion, they represent the wisdom and experience. Now, ingine wana represent the passion, the energy and the passion. They are very energetic and passionate, but they don't have the wisdom and experience. Now wako na wisdom and experience, lakini kuna pale ukiwaeka watachoka. Your energy and all that. How can we link up these two generations? Because it's something that has been tried for a long time, but I don't think we are supposed to give up, because there needs to be a partnership between these two generations. How do we link them up?
Wow. Ulikuwa umeniambia utaniuliza maswali zingine, tulikuwa tumeagree. Sasa guy,
I think you're the better. By the way, hata iko kwa script ya kukuuliza, but wewe tumeongea hivyo.
Yeah, it's a valid question.
Yeah, you're the better person to answer it.
It's a hard question, because it involves somebody has to do the hard work of reaching out to this generation. And reaching out to this generation, you have to change a lot of things. Yeah. Jesus, again, it's because we have misunderstood the gospel of Jesus Christ for a long time. Jesus was manifested what we would call an incarnational gospel. Okay? He was up in heaven with God. Philippians 2 says he did not consider being equal with God something to grasp. He lowered himself.
Yes.
Became a man. Divinity took on, incarnated into becoming a man, and that's how he became effective. Somebody, especially in our generation, has to do that. If that is not, because these guys will not look for us. They will only look for us when they're in trouble, deep trouble, and that's when probably they have become parents, and now they're scratching their heads because the children they're dealing with are even worse than they are right now. And so they're like, now, hey, Baba so and so, how were you able to? So, but that's maybe too late. Somebody has to do the dirty work of understanding the context, of letting go of some things. And having conversation with that generation, we just have to understand, yes, we have the wisdom, but we cannot come with certain biases to that conversation. We cannot come with certain biases. I mean, I've had conversations with some people in that generation who are gay, who are lesbians. I cannot go to that conversation by thumping and, I have to go and listen. I mean, the time we sat with a whole team of representatives of the LGBTQ community. Another lengthy conversation about so we said, really our message stands that we believe this is a choice lifestyle that can be changed, but it does not mean we hate you. We love you. We can work together. It's very uncomfortable. Then you begin to love them for the person they are, but you hold them accountable to the person they should be. Okay? And you have that conversation. It's a difficult one. So somebody has to do that. Somebody has to welcome them to church. Somebody has to go and be with them. Not even welcome them, has to go and be with them wherever they are. And it's a difficult. I'm telling you, in there, it seems like, they make some mistakes. You want to beat them. You're like, can't you get? But you have to be patient with them. Okay? You have to be patient with them and just work with them. For the quality. But for you to do that, you will hear things, you will see things that will, make your skin thingy. But you need to be consistent. You need to be constant. I was taught to know about raising teenagers. The one lesson you were taught is you need to be consistent in what you do. Then they'll go up and down and find you. Especially if you are raising girls, they will go up and down. They need to be finding you always somewhere until at some point they will stabilize and they'll need to work with you. You see, unaruka, I would make that mistake with my boys, because now my eldest son is 18. I would make that mistake with him. And the other day we had to sit down and had to apologize for some things that I did. Because ningemfuata, ameenda juu nimemfuata, namkutia huko. And you tell me, kuna time ulinichapa msee. Nikaambia easy. Come pole. Pia utajua. Because and at some point I go to a place where, because my son is that generation. I have to really, he will not pray the way I'm praying. He will not read the Bible the way I'm reading. He will not do things the way I'm doing. I have to understand that. I have to love him from his side. I have to walk with him from his side, because now what he needs more is a relationship, not a preaching. He needs a relationship. And that relationship needs to be consistent to the point that I'm praying for him. There are some things he hasn't gotten yet. But I know at some point he will get those things, and I need to be there for him. That's why the relationship is very critical. Okay? And the younger one, the other, so both of them, that's where I am at. I mean, I don't understand the music. So zingine naenda nyumbani, I think ndo nimepata muziki daily. Utakwenda kushare nao. Kwa nini msikie ngoma? Wanaisikiza, wanaishia. Naenda kusikiza muziki, wanasikiza na shamba hii ni nini?
Kuna mimi sijui kama umeona ya Jerry, ya Tom. Sijui kama umeona hiyo. Kuna mimi fulani ni song current inachezwa. It has heavy shame. So like I think they picked the character of Tom from Tom and Jerry. Tom from one episode. Nilikuwa nasikiza. Umeiona?
You cannot hear anything. You cannot understand what these guys are saying. Right?
Exactly. Na ni sheng relevant together.
So you have to also be humble and ask the questions. Like me, some words, I just have to now be humble and ask him. Rende, aya.
Na pocha nyagu unajua nini?
Asijui.
Pocha nyagu ni chapo nyama.
Nyagu, pocha. At least I can decode that. Pocha nyagu.
That's what I heard from that song.
Imagine. Because your prayer, there's somebody from the UK who was like, what is going on here? So akachekelewa na somebody kasema acha nimsaidie. The only sentence I could understand is what I explained. Because you can't understand the rest of it. Okay? And we need to be secure enough to realize that we don't know everything. Okay? We will need them to teach us some things. So if they can see the humility, a willingness to learn, then they can receive from us. Problem is that many times they don't see the humility.
Exactly.
They don't see it.
Sawa. Basi sasa kwa Facebook page yako naona mwana posting sana story ya conservatives, Trump and all that. And I think nimeona wewe ndio the best person kufundiza hii swali. I think there has never been sijui kama nasije nasemaje. I think Trump ile wanachukiwa ni iko on another level and I've never seen actually personally. And there are some of the policies that America in place zenye for me is not make sense, especially as far as the church is concerned. And in my opinion, I think many issues that he is raising does not make sense. First of all, for his country, because the loyalty ya kwanza yake ni country yake, making America great and all that. But the ones that are affecting us, pale penye tuko sahi as Kenyans and also the whole world, especially as Christians, I think he's making the right moves as far as the freedom of religion and worship is concerned. So my question is, we've had in the previous regime, there are so many vices that were put in place. Zenye tuna battle sahi, tuliachiwa legacy ingine mpaka sahi tunapigana nayo. There were some good stuffs, yes, but kuna zile zenye sahi zina infiltrate our society. Right now we are talking issues about abortion, we are talking issues about birth control, tunaongea stories the LGBT, wameongezeka imekuwa mpaka P sasa. There are so many things. So first of all, are you anaweza kueleza hii swali? When you pro Trump ama
Well, if I was in the US, I would vote for Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt about it, and I know I get as many stones as possible.
Yeah.
Because of that, and it's because we have the freedom to choose.
Yeah.
And to elect people that we feel align with what we feel.
Yeah.
Does it mean that I agree with everything Trump? No. No. But when I compare, saying if I was there, I compare him with his opponent and some of the things that there are some things the opponent would gravitate towards that I am very uncomfortable with. There are some things that Trump would gravitate towards I'm uncomfortable with. I mean, the white nationalists and all that, I mean, I'm uncomfortable with that. But then when I weigh it against the things that I would really be interested in, I mean, he just did an executive, or he signed an executive a couple of weeks ago order with regards to religious freedom, something that most presidents would not even want to do. Challenge China and challenge, these countries that are, persecuting Christians and other religious minorities. Kudos. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, he's been one of the few presidents that has been very, vocal and very bold about defending, especially the Christian faith. Now, he's not the best person to defend the Christian faith because of his history, which some of it also has been exaggerated. But nonetheless, I mean, Nebuchadnezzar stood up for God's people, and we don't have a problem with that. But when Trump does that, we say, how can this kind of a person stand up for God's people? But if you know the evil that some of these kings did, and they stood for God's people, so that's another story. But I would vote for him. Some of the family conservative values is not a very good model for a family in terms of one or two things. But some of the conservative values with challenging abortion, challenging some of these and I believe that everybody has got to have rights, same sex and all that, but they are sometimes pushed to certain extents. Like, as a pastor, I don't want to be in a place where there are laws that force me to employ somebody who has behaviors or attributes that I'm uncomfortable with. I should be given the freedom to do so. And so defending that pastor, defending that Christian baker who could not bake a cake for this couple, and such people. And so we need to have rights for everyone, but rights should not infringe on other people's rights. And so there has to be a conversation. So I think I like his approach in that sense. That's one thing about Trump. He's not a politician. He's not a politician. He has never run for any other political office. And so people are not used to that. People love politicians because politicians love to lie to them. Trump will tell you blunt.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
He is crude.
Yeah.
He has to be really coached how to talk as a politician. Yeah. If he just had a bit of politician in him, then he could be able to lie better. He lies crudely. And so he gets into a lot of trouble. Yeah. But I like the guy. Yeah. And there's a part of me that, everybody's against him. I'm like, why would everybody be against him? Yeah. Let me find out about him. And let me see if... Sometimes I have this thing for underdogs. I'm like, why is everybody wanting to beat this guy? Let me find out what is it about this guy that everybody wants to beat. And in doing that, I've felt that maybe, even for the African American community, I think Trump has really tried. Okay, and it's unbelievable. People may, come up with all sorts of facts. But the moment he got into office, he began to do certain things. I mean, the universities, just to make sure the funding for those universities that focus on the black community is going up, opportunity zones, unemployment rate for the African American for a long time came to the lowest. Okay, if it were not for COVID, and even recently the jobs that were added, there was a significant increase in the number of jobs for the African Americans, and he was trying to help them get off welfare, which becomes a problem. Because people feel, they still need to be on welfare. I mean, I was watching a documentary, some people are complaining, they have to go and work very far because they have been removed off welfare, but now they have been given a job. So things like that. His rhetoric, sometimes I'm uncomfortable with it. His tweets, I'm like, please don't tweet. Please just don't tweet. I mean, the other day, he did something fantastic, which people are not talking about. CNN is not talking about. There was this jazz thing in Seattle. And, they had occupied a certain portion of the city. And in that jazz occupied, for Black Lives, it was Black Lives Matter. They were doing it to defend, because they believe in Black lives. 2 teenagers, black teenagers, were killed in that zone. And one of them, it was so sad that even when the medics and police were coming to help, those protesters stopped them. Until, this young man died. The father of this young man has been waiting for a call from the mayor. A mayor who believes Black Lives Matter. No? Not called. Guess who called that father?
The president.
Trump. What? And just expressed condolences and said, we hope these things will not continue. And nobody reported about it. It was just on Twitter. I didn't see it on. I think it's only Fox that did something about it. But CNN, MSNBC, what is the name of that? MSNBC.
Something like that.
So I'm just thinking, this is a controversial figure.
And Pasi, what's your position on Black Lives Matter?
The cause is good, but the characters and some of the things they are sneaking in. Because have you read their manifesto? I've read their manifesto.
I heard the founder saying that they are trained Marxists.
I've read their manifesto. I went and dug it and read. At some point even, they are talking about how they want to restructure nuclear family, about patriarchal, the whole thing of patriarchal, you can just dig it out and read. And I felt, this may not be the best. And then some characters they have sneaked in there as part of their agenda. I'm uncomfortable with that. And so there are characters that are behind this thing that make me uncomfortable. But Black lives, the cause to deal with, to confront racial injustice, I'm up. I'm with it. I'm with that. But then, you begin to sneak in other things and begin to push ways of doing those things. Probably the means is what I'm uncomfortable with. But the cause, I'm okay with that. And, count me in. But before I put BLM on my Facebook page or as my, what do you call that picture for your
The cover photo.
Cover photo.
Yeah.
Before I do that, I want to see the manifesto, because I may be fronting something that may be totally different.
Yeah.
I mean, they are receiving a lot of funding,
Yeah.
but part of that funding is going to support the democratic. But that's what some people are saying, are suggesting.
Yeah.
It's going to support transgender activities. It's going to support this and that. And I'm just beginning to be uncomfortable with that. The course is good, but there are better ways of handling that. And I think if the Black African American community sits down and have a conversation, they may come up with a better way of resolving this than Black Lives Matter. And it can be done, because there are those who are uncomfortable. There's a video that was going around, another lady really scolding a Black Lives Matter person and just challenging them on their agenda and saying this is not. I mean, Black Lives Matter having a close association with Planned Parenthood,
It's an issue.
that I don't think I would want that. I don't think I would want, to be part of a movement that has close relationship with Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
And is getting support from Planned Parenthood and all that. I don't want to be part of that. And that's one thing I also feel like, I'm with Trump on that. Defunding Planned Parenthood. You watch a documentary called Maafa 21. Maafa 21. It documents, the whole thing of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, and all this, and begins to talk about the number of African American girls that are securing abortion, and these facilities being mostly dense, being in areas where there is huge African American population, and it becomes a problem. So on that, I'm uncomfortable with Black Lives Matter in terms of the organization, but in terms of the cause, count me in.
Kabisa. Thank you so much, Pasi.
Asante.
Pasi, acha nikwambie wewe, hata sasa niko na maswali mingi, lakini tutaongea. I believe there's going to be part 2.
Tutaongea.
Yeah, we'll still definitely have a part 2 where we'll get to talk some of these issues more. Thank you so much for your time. God bless sana. Continue doing the good job that you do. Continue educating us on Facebook.
Continue saving me sometimes when I'm stuck.
I will. I'm here for you. Lakini pale unalemewa, nasema tu neema ya Bwana iwe na wewe.
Amina.
Sawa.
Yeah, thank you also for being a positive voice in this generation, and for the things that you're doing to impact generation.
Thank you, Pastor.
And I pray that many more people will take up the challenge that you're doing to impact society, and that you reproduce more people like you. All right?
Thank you so much. This has been TruZone Podcast with Pastor Richard Chogo, hapa hivi Deliverance Church Umoja. Until next time, God bless you. Stay safe, sanitize. Corona bado haijaisha. Time imefunguliwa lakini corona bado iko. Stay safe, sanitize, keep distance, observe all the protocols that have been issued by the Ministry of Health. Until next time, God bless you.